Tucker put out a statement that I think is factually incoherent about Mark Levin's position on Iran and Iran itself. It's rather lengthy. He says, Mark Levin was at the White House today lobbying for war with Iran. To be clear, Levin has no plans to fight in this or any other war. This is one of Tucker's shticks, is that if you are not currently serving in the military, then you have to be in favor of apparently dismantling the American military or something like that. The basic argument seems to be that unless you personally plan to fight in a war, then you can never be in favor of American military threat or intervention on any level, which is a weird position to take because I assume he doesn't take that position about the police, that unless you're a member of the police force, you have to be in favor of the police never policing crime. I don't mean here that we are the world's policemen or anything like that. I mean that civilians in the United States have opinions that they vote on what the non-civilians do. We are a civilian-led country. The civilians get to tell the military what to do. The president is a civilian. He tells the military what to do. We are the voters. We elect the president. When it comes to the police department works for the general public. The police department doesn't get to make its own decisions about what to do about crime. The general public decides what to do about crime and thus hires police officers and backs police officers and supports police officers. Says he's demanding that American troops do it. We need to stop Iran from building nuclear weapons. He and like-minded ideologues in Washington are now arguing. They're just weeks away. So first of all, that's not Mark and like-minded ideologues. That's Donald J. Trump. That is President Trump. We need to stop Iran from building nuclear weapons is a Donald J. Trump position. It has been a Donald J. Trump position for well over a decade. So if Tucker wants to argue with somebody on that, he should be arguing with the President of the United States. By the way, that also happens to be the stated position of the Vice President of the United States, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of Defense. So if Tucker is in favor of the proposition that no one needs to stop Iran from building nuclear weapons, perhaps you should take it up with the administration. Quote, if this sounds familiar, it's because the same people have been making the same claim since at least the 1990s. It's a lie. In fact, there is zero credible intelligence that suggests Iran is anywhere near building a bomb or has plans to. None. So first of all, I wonder what Tucker's intelligence capacities are. I mean, what is his access to this special intelligence of which we know not? He says anyone who claims otherwise is ignorant or dishonest. So he has special knowledge. Or you're a liar is I guess, the two choices. If the U.S. government knew Iran was weeks from possessing a nuclear weapon, we'd be at war already. But I thought that we wouldn't be at war already, even if Iran was weeks from possessing a nuclear weapon, because we don't care if Iran has a nuclear weapon, according to Tucker. By the way, people who say that Iran is developing a nuclear weapon and nuclear fuel and all that, that would be the IAEA, which literally came out last week and released two separate reports. One suggesting on Saturday, again, the IAEA is not a Zionist outlet, okay? The IAEA published Saturday that Iran has accumulated more than 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. Civilian nuclear energy is like 3.67%. The only reason you're enriching to 60% is to get to a bomb. If enriched to 90%, such a quantity is enough for 10 nuclear bombs. A second IAEA report published Saturday made clear that Iran hasn't given satisfactory answers to IAEA investigations regarding several undeclared nuclear sites in the country. So, I mean, that's some evidence. I mean, that's not none. Beyond which, here are tweets from the Ayatollah Khamenei over the course of the last week. Quote, thanks to the intelligence of our youth and the dedication of our scientists, Iran has succeeded in achieving a complete nuclear fuel cycle. So today we're capable of producing nuclear fuel, starting from the mine and all the way to the power plant. Quote, thousands of nuclear scientists and researchers have been trained in Iran. Should we disappoint them, make them unemployed, and take away their hope in our country's future? The rude, insolent U.S. leaders want this. They're opposed to progress and self-sufficiency for the Iranian people. A few years ago, one of the U.S. presidents said he would dismantle the nuts and bolts of Iran's nuclear industry if he could. Of course, he admitted that he couldn't. Those in power today, the Zionists and the Americans, should know they can't do a damn thing in this area. So who's talking about nuclear power? The Ayatollahs, the IAEA, literally everyone. So that's not no evidence. That seems like fairly solid evidence, actually, like publicly stated evidence. And that's not even getting into whatever is in the SCIF, whatever in the special intelligence rooms. So unless Tucker has some secret knowledge, which he probably should share with the world, that Iran is not developing nuclear weapons and has no plans to, contra literally all available intelligence, then maybe he should reveal it. Tucker says Iran knows this, which is why they aren't building one. They're not building a nuclear weapon. Iran also knows it's unwise to give up its weapons programs entirely. So now he's trying to say that Iran isn't building one, but also they are building one because if they were to give up building one, then bad things would happen. Okay? Seems to contradict itself, but all right. Muammar Gaddafi tried that and wound up sodomized with a bayonet. Okay, so I do agree with Tucker. The American actions in the overthrow of Gaddafi were a disgrace. I said so at the time. The Hillary Clinton-led intervention in Libya was a disaster area. It never should have happened. Muammar Gaddafi had given up his nuclear weapons, and the attempted overthrow and successful overthrow of the government of Libya did not end in good fashion for the United States, considering the burning of the embassy in Benghazi and the killing of our diplomats. He says as soon as Gaddafi disarmed, NATO killed him. Iran's leaders saw that happen. They learned the obvious lesson. So why is Mark Levin once again hyperventilating about weapons of mass destruction to distract you from the real goal, which is regime change? Young Americans headed back to the Middle East to topple yet another government. Okay, literally no one says this. No one. Mark hasn't said this. I haven't said this. No one has said that we should be sending hundreds of thousands of American troops to topple the regime in Iran. No one. Zero people. So that is total projection or speculation by Tucker. And it's basically John Kerry, Barack Obama logic, which is that you have to let Iran go nuclear or you have to topple the regime. There's no third choice. And that if you actually do strike Iran's nuclear facility, or if Israel strikes Iran's nuclear facilities, that then there will be World War III, which is a point that Tucker will get to in a moment. He says virtually no one will say this out loud. America's record of overthrowing foreign leaders is so embarrassingly counterproductive that regime change has become a synonym for disaster. Officially, no one supports it. So instead of telling the truth about their motives, they manufacture hysteria. A country like Iran can never have the bomb. They'll nuke LA. We have to act now. Well, I've never suggested that Iran is going to nuke Los Angeles. I've suggested that Iran is a threat to all of our regional allies at the very least and will reshape the map of the Middle East, which has serious resource implication and alliance implications for countries that Tucker likes, like Qatar, for example, or the UAE or Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and UAE are virulently opposed to an Iran nuclear program. So talking about manufacturing hysteria, then he gets to the manufacturing hysteria section here. He says they don't really mean this. And you can tell they don't by what they omit. At least two of Iran's neighbors, both Islamic nations, already have nuclear weapons. So he says that fact should scare the hell out of Mark Levin. So first of all, which? I mean, that's fat. Is there a second one? I know Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Is there another nuclear-armed Muslim nation there? If so, Tucker should probably tell us about that. That seems like kind of a problem. Unless he's aware of, again, facts that we are not aware of, and I don't know why he would be privy to such facts. Says that fact should scare the hell out of Mark Levin, yet for some reason he never mentions it. How come? Because it's not the weapons he hates, it's the ideology of the Iranian government, which is why he's lobbying to overthrow it. Well, it's not just the weapons, it is also the ideology. Like the UK has nuclear weapons, and I don't oppose the UK having nuclear weapons because their ideology does not oppose the West and call us the Great Satan. So yeah, I'm a little more concerned when a country that calls America the Great Satan has nuclear weapons than when France has nuclear weapons, or Israel has nuclear weapons, or India has nuclear weapons. He says it goes without saying there are very few Trump voters who'd support a regime change war in Iran. I agree. I would not support a regime change war in Iran that involves hundreds of thousands of American troops. Agree. Donald Trump has argued loudly against reckless lunacy like this. Trump ran for president as a peace candidate. That's what made him different from conventional Republicans. It's why he won. Well, actually, that's not true. He ran as a peace through strength candidate, and then during his first term, he actually made that happen with the Abraham Accords by killing Qasem Soleimani. I still am wondering what Tucker's opinion is on the killing of Qasem Soleimani. I believe he thought that would lead to a regional war as well. A war with Iran would amount to a profound betrayal of his supporters who would end his presidency. That may explain why so many of Trump's enemies are advocating for it. Well, again, no one is advocating. Like, he's totally strawmanning this position. No one is advocating for a full-scale war with Iran. We did not go to full-scale war with Iran when Ronald Reagan sank their entire Navy in 1988. And then there's the question of the war itself. So here is Tucker's hysteria about what it would mean for there to be a strike on nuclear facilities. Iran may not have nukes, but it has a fearsome arsenal of ballistic missiles, many of which are aimed at U.S. military installations in the Gulf, as well as at our allies and at critical energy infrastructure. The first week of a war with Iran could easily kill thousands of Americans. It could also collapse our economy as surging oil prices trigger unmanageable inflation. Consider the effects of $30 gasoline. Okay, so first of all, if there were to be a surge in oil prices, it would be very short-lived, considering that all the major oil producers who are not Iran are allied with the United States against the Iranian nuclear program, including, by the way, the United States, the number one oil producer on planet Earth. Right now, the price of oil is so low that we're not even opening new fracking wells in the United States. Saudi doesn't want an Iranian nuclear program. UAE does not want an Iranian nuclear program. When he says the first week of a war with Iran would easily kill thousands of Americans, or could, I assume he said the same thing about Qasem Soleimani. It didn't. And the reason for that is obvious. If Iran were actually to fire a bunch of ballistic missiles at American military bases around the region, we would, in fact, use our air power to decapitate the regime, and they know it. Which is why, for example, after Israel completely defenestrated its own air defense, it didn't launch several thousand missiles at Israel, because it knew that if it had done that, then there would have been full-scale attempts to decapitate the regime. Iran knows that. It is a weak regime economically. It is a weaker than expected regime militarily. Its terror proxies all over the region have been wildly hampered, including Hezbollah, which is so ineffective that it lost Syria, not just Lebanon. Tucker says, the second week of the war could be even worse. Iran isn't Iraq or Libya or even North Korea. While it's often described as a rogue state, Iran has powerful allies. It's now part of a global bloc called BRICS, which represents the majority of the world's landmass, population, economy, and military power. Iran has extensive military ties with Russia. It sells the overwhelming majority of its oil exports to China. Iran isn't alone. An attack on Iran could very easily become a world war, which we would lose. So his theory now is that the BRICS nations will suddenly solidify as an axis against the United States if we hit their nuclear facilities or if Israel does. That's the idea? Really? Okay, let me just explain which nations are members of BRICS. So Iran is, of course, a member of BRICS. I'm trying to remember all the other members of BRICS. Who are the BRICS members? I'm asking our sponsors at Perplexity really quickly, who are the other members of BRICS, just to remind me. The BRICS group is 11 member countries. Originally, of course, it was Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Those were the ones that I knew off the top of my head. But in 2024, 2025, there are a bunch of other countries that were added. That'd be Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Brazil. Brazil is going to join like a military alliance with Iran. They have some warm relations with, they're going to join like a military actual alliance with Iran, is the theory. China is going to join a military alliance with Iran sufficient that they're going to get involved in a world war over Iran losing its nuclear facilities. Are you even kidding me? What? China won't even risk that over Russia having its airplanes being blown up on the ground in Ukraine. And Russia is a way more important ally to China than Iran is. By the way, other members of BRICS include Egypt, which doesn't want a nuclear program in Iran and hates Iran. The UAE, which despises Iran and the nuclear program. It includes India, which is allied against Pakistan. That's that other Muslim country with the nuclear weapon. India does not exactly have warm relations. India's going to jump in a world war on the side of Iran? Really? South Africa, which, again, I wasn't aware that we care very much what South Africa does, considering that they are the source of, as President Trump has suggested, tremendous racism against whites. Ethiopia, the deep and abiding threat of Ethiopian military prowess. I'm sure that the United States is deeply concerned. Indonesia ain't jumping into nothing. So what he is, and he says Russia. Russia can't even handle the Ukrainians right now. So his theory is that if the Iranian nuclear facilities are blown up by Israel or by the United States, in the absence of some sort of basic capitulation to Iran, then Brazil, Russia, China, India, Ethiopia, South Africa, Egypt, UAE, and Indonesia are all going to jump in on the side of Iran to launch a world war against the United States. And he's saying that people who worry about the Iranian nuclear program are hysterical. That's the hysteria. Honestly, I need like a step-by-step here. I need a step-by-step on how that happens. Truly. And what the chances are. He says none of these are far-fetched predictions. I mean, yes, they really, really, really are. He says most of them comport with the Pentagon's own estimates. Many Americans would die during a war with Iran. Now, again, he is characterizing a war with Iran as full-scale invasion of Iran. Yes, if we did a full-scale invasion of Iran, many Americans would die. If we hit the nuclear facilities, that is a far less likely possibility. And if Israel does it and we're not even involved, it's an even lower possibility. And then Tucker gets into his favorite game, which is to accuse the people he's talking about of not caring about Americans. This is his favorite game. He loves doing this. It's amazing. Tucker will impute to people who disagree with him characterizations about him that they've not made. He's done this with me. He does it with Mark as well. He says, people like Mark Levin don't seem to care about this. It's not relevant to them. So he basically says that Mark does not care about Americans dying. So I guess Mark hates America is basically his proposition. It's not relevant to them. Instead, they insist that Iran give up all uranium enrichment, regardless of its purpose. Please explain the need for a uranium enrichment program, Tucker. They know perfectly well that Iran will never accept that demand. They'll fight first. And of course, that's the whole point of pushing for it, to box the Trump administration into a regime change war in Iran. Again, it is the stated position of Donald J. Trump for 10 years that Iran cannot have nuclear capacity. That is not Mark Levin's position. The president, as we have very well learned on every available topic, on things where I agree with him and things where I disagree with him, the president has his own mind. The president makes up his own mind. And Tucker's attempts here to sort of force Trump into a position by suggesting that Mark is manipulating Trump or something. Absurd. The one thing that people like Mark Levin don't want is a peaceful solution to the problem of Iran, despite the obvious benefits to the United States, says Tucker. Well, actually, I'm sure that Mark would very much like a peaceful resolution of the problem in Iran. If Iran, for example, were to say, we will give up all nuclearization efforts monitored by the United States today, and we will stop building ballistic missile programs, and we will stop supporting terror groups all over the region, I'm sure Mark would be on board. I would be on board. I don't know anyone who wouldn't be on board. The terms of a deal are what makes a deal bad or good. And then Tucker says they denounce anyone who advocates for a deal as a traitor and a bigot. Okay, this is such absolute projection. Mark has not called Tucker a traitor or a bigot. He has not done any of that. I have not called Tucker a traitor and a bigot. Tucker has called both of us traitors and bigots. But we have not done that. It's absolute sheer projection. Says they tell us with a straight face that Long Island native Steve Witkoff is a secret tool of Islamic monarchies. Well, no. What I've said about Steve Witkoff is that Steve Witkoff appears to not be a particularly useful special envoy, and that Steve Witkoff has deep and abiding business relationships with Qatar, which is true. That happens to be the case. Says they'll say or do whatever it takes. They have no limits. These are scary people. Again, now you get into the emotional and overwrought and rather hysterical characterization of his enemies as they'll say or do whatever it takes. They have no limits. They're scary. Pray that Donald Trump ignores them. If something can be characterized as hysterical here, it would be this post from Tucker. And I felt like it was worth going through in detail because there are so many factual errors and logical mistakes here that it demonstrates, I think, a serious flaw in thinking. Again, President Trump has made clear that JCPOA was a bad deal because it was. He ran on that. He won on it twice. He undid JCPOA in his first term. He killed Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian terror master, in his first term. No world war broke out. Joe Biden came in. He restored sanctions relief to Iran. Joe Biden came in. He loosened everything he could on Iran. And the result was a built-up Iranian bulwark all over the region that allowed for a massive 7-front terror war against Israel and Iran threatening other neighbors, including Saudi and UAE. And now Donald Trump came back in, promising not to do that anymore. If Tucker wants to go to war with President Trump's actual stated policy preferences for 10 years, he is free to do that. But you'll notice that he's attacking Mark based on, I guess, a leaked conversation. So, again, I have a few questions. What special knowledge does Tucker Carlson have about Iran's nuclear program that he can speak with such confidence about their non-nuclear development, supposedly? What special insight does he have into what goes on in the Oval Office and why? I mean, like the secret meetings that are happening or people who are talking in the Oval Office, somebody is leaking to him. And finally, what is the logical proposition that is even being expressed here other than in the end that Tucker doesn't care if Iran goes nuclear? I just don't see does he care? I mean, if he does, he should speak up. Does he care if Iran gets a nuclear weapon? He seems not to. So if he doesn't care, then he should just say so. Truly. Because he seems to want it both ways. He seems to say that if Iran gains a peaceful nuclear program, because he trusts the Iranians, I suppose, then that's no problem to him. But if they openly threaten that it's going to go nuclear, that makes sense and it's fine with him also. So I have a simple question. Is he fine with Iran going nuclear in terms of weaponry? If the answer is yes, then let's have that discussion. Why is he okay with that? Does he think that's fine? If he thinks that's fine, that at least is an honest conversation. But imputing to all of his opponents a lack of patriotism, a hatred for American troops, a lack of concern about American soldiers' lives in the Middle East, a deeply rooted desire for a full-scale war with Iran, imputing those motives and opinions to people who literally do not hold those motives and opinions is scurrilous. It's scurrilous, whether he's doing it about Mark, whether he's doing it about me, whether he's doing it about others. And we should note that the position that he is taking a position against a non-nuclear Iran is the opposite of President Trump's position and has been, again, for a decade. By the way, I will say it again because I've said it now about 1,000 times. Tucker has said many things about me over the course of the last almost 2 years at this point. And I've offered him multiple times, publicly and privately, to come on the show or have a discussion anywhere about these topics. That invitation remains open. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.